Federal Drive is presented by GEHA, Government Employees Health Association, proudly providing health and dental benefits to federal employees and their families. Visit GEHA.com.
Speaking of national security, background investigations have long been a drag on federal hiring, but under a long-running initiative called Trusted Workforce 2.0, agencies have been working to modernize and streamline personnel vetting. But a lot of reform is yet to be done. Federal News Network's Justin Doubleday covered this for our 25th anniversary series, and he joins me now. And let's review Trusted Workforce 2.0. Seems more relevant than ever these days.
Back in 2018, the background investigations backlog across government had reached critical levels, 725,000 cases, and it was taking months, in some cases years, for agencies to complete background investigations. And of course, that led to lengthy wait times to fill many positions across government. In some cases, people just decided they weren't going to wait around. So at this critical time, a lot of these reforms that had long been talked about kind of came together. The Office of Personnel Management, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, and the Office of Management and Budget kind of led agencies in coming together to create Trusted Workforce 2.0. This was also coming out of a time just a few years before the Office of Personnel Management's system had been breached by suspected China-linked hackers. So they were already in the process of replacing this IT system, and now they're looking at some whole-of-government reforms to really get things off the ground. I spoke with Donald Blursch, who was a senior State Department security official at the time. He now leads policy reforms at the Intelligence and National Security Alliance.
We were talking, at the one level about these far-reaching policy implementations and reforms, but yet they had this nightmare of a fight in their hands with the OPM breach, the big backlog. Everything was still based on the old systems and driven primarily by paper and very labor-intensive. So that was sort of an all-hands-on-deck moment.
Yes, and so the initial focus of Trusted Workforce 2.0 then was that vetting?
That's right. It was just digging out of that backlog primarily, but also adopting new processes in order to do so. And so one of the big things was the shift to what was referred to at the time as continuous evaluation. It's now more commonly referred to as continuous vetting. Essentially, it's a system of automated records checks. So human background investigators no longer have to go through a person's file every 5 or 10 years to dig up what has happened, whether they've had any arrests, whether they've had any suspicious financial issues. Now a lot of that is automated, and transitioning to that 5 to 7 years ago really allowed the government to dig out of this big background investigations backlog, because you could take these investigators and put them on initial cases where people were first coming into government or into cleared industry, and you didn't have to do these periodic reinvestigations anymore. Within just a few years, they had actually gotten that backlog down to what they call a stable level, and it was taking a lot less time.
And some of the policy side, that's operational, I guess you might say, without really a change in policy. What are some of the top policy updates under this initiative?
This really kicked off under the Biden administration. The Trump administration launched Trusted Workforce 2.0 and focused on digging out of that backlog. Under Biden, the folks, they carried this forward, and they really focused on things like federal personnel vetting guidelines, streamlining some of those. Instead of a 5-tier model where you had different levels of risk and sensitivity, they collapsed it down to 3, low, medium, and high. That helps simplify things a little bit for agencies when they're looking to order a background investigation for a position. They also had new federal personnel vetting performance management standards. So for the first time, it was going to be looked at as a management issue, where you were going to look at how you were investigating and adjudicating these cases. And so this allowed agencies to kind of look at this at more of the performance level that they wanted to, rather than just as a security thing that they have to do.
And so for those that have or seek security clearance, things look a lot different over the last couple of years.
They do. I mean, in addition to collapsing some of those timelines, there are also some changes to the forms that folks have to fill out. They've now shifted to this new e-application that's a little bit more intuitive and modern than the previous online application. There have been several other process changes. One big one was this focus on mental health questions. Folks who have security clearances have been concerned that if they report a mental health issue that might affect their clearance, There's been a lot of messaging over the last few years and some changes in the applications to kind of say, if you just have some issues where you're seeking mental health counseling, that isn't necessarily going to affect, in many cases, it's not going to affect your clearance. I spoke with Valerie Kerbin, who is a senior policy advisor at OD&I, about this specific issue.
The question was rephrased to really focus on only those specific conditions that can impact someone's judgment and reliability. And the messaging that came out was, we're focusing on wellness and recovery, and it's positive to go for counseling. It shows good faith effort and rehabilitation, and it shouldn't affect someone's job.
Yeah, so a little garden variety anxiety doesn't mean you're psychotic or something. We'll spill national secrets. All right, the remaining challenges then.
One big one is still, it takes a long time to do a background investigation. You know, folks can't necessarily wait around months to hear about whether they're going to be able to do a job or not. And so that's one thing that the Defense Counterintelligence and Security Agency is really focusing on and reducing even more. DCSA is also, in a related project, working on a new IT system called the National Background Investigation Services to run this streamlined system that they've now moved toward. But that system, that software, has faced a lot of delays. It's well over budget. It's years behind schedule.
Imagine that.
Yeah, DCSA is now trying to get it back on track here over the next couple of years. And so this IT system is really critical to getting to kind of this data-centric future that folks envision for personnel vetting. Don Blursch spoke a little bit about that with me as well.
Using things like AI, I think, is another place where, that'll be a big help. Looking at trends, having the tools flag things that even 1,000 investigators looking through the data wouldn't necessarily make connections between disparate pieces, and it's still going to be up to a person that's trained and certified to make decisions. But the tools and the information that's being brought up to them, I think, would just become richer as we fold those additional tools in.
And briefly, Justin, there is still a backlog with what they do have at the DCSA. What are they trying to do to get rid of that?
This is timely. DCSA just put out an update this week. That backlog of investigations had risen to about 291,000 cases in last September. DCSA says they've just decreased that back to 220,000 cases as of April 21st. So some progress there. They typically try to keep it at about 200,000 cases as a steady state. They've moved back in the right direction on the backlog.
Federal News Network's Justin Doubleday, thanks so much.
Thanks, Tom.
And be sure to check out his story and all of our 25th anniversary coverage at federalnewsnetwork.com.